On October 15, 2008, the Riverside. California police received an urgent call. A young couple had suddenly gone silent, unreachable by their workplace or family, their phones unanswered, and no sign of them at their jobs. When officers entered their home in a peaceful residential neighborhood, they were met with a haunting scene: two bodies, bound and gagged, lying motionless. The husband, a Marine Corps sergeant, Yannick Paul Piacek; the wife, an ambitious intellectual, Kiana Faye Jenkins. The crime scene revealed this was no ordinary murder, but a chilling combination of violence, hatred, and betrayal. Who could commit such a ruthless act? And why would a couple who seemed to have it all, love, careers, a future, become victims of an incomprehensible crime? To grasp the weight of this tragedy, we must first look back at the lives and journeys of the two central figures, Yannick Paul Piacek and Kiana Faye Jenkins. Born into vastly different circumstances, they shared a common thread: a desire to live meaningfully and a belief in a brighter future. Yannick was born on March 13, 1984, in Poland, named after Pope John Paul II. At age 11, his family immigrated to the United States, settling in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a hub for immigrants. Growing up in a culturally diverse environment, Jan developed a disciplined, resilient character. Yet he often wrestled with finding his place in this new society. The September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, with New York City engulfed in smoke and flames, left a profound mark on him. For the young immigrant, joining the Marine Corps was not just a career choice, but a way to prove his loyalty and forge his identity. In 2003, Jan enlisted, training as a helicopter mechanic and quickly rising to the rank of sergeant. His comrades nicknamed him Sergeant P, a term of endearment and respect for a strict but fair leader. In contrast, Kiana Faye Jenkins was born on February 16, 1982, in Ontario, Southern California. She was an only child in an intellectual family, with parents who valued education and discipline. Raised in a stable environment, Kiana dreamed of pursuing a career in medicine and community health care. After earning a master's degree in public health from San Diego State University, she joined a program focused on healthcare for Black infants, a field that reflected her social sensitivity and commitment to vulnerable communities. Friends described Kiana as intelligent, strong, and deeply convinced that medicine and social justice could work hand in hand to transform lives. In 2005, fate brought these two together. Before Jan was deployed to Iraq, he attended a farewell party for Marines preparing to ship out. There, he met Kiana, initially. Kiana was cautious, knowing that dating a serviceman meant facing long separations and dangers. But Jan's sincerity and passion quickly broke through her reservations. From their early conversations, their relationship blossomed into love. They complemented each other: a disciplined, battle-hardened soldier devoted to national duty, and an intellectual woman driven by ambition and faith in science. To friends and family, Jan and Kiana became a model of love that transcended differences in race, background, and societal prejudice. Many admired their bond and the way they planned their future together, despite the harsh demands of military life. On August 8, 2008, they sealed their commitment with a simple yet joyful wedding. For them, it marked the start of a new chapter where love and career would go hand in hand. But no one could have foreseen that. Just 2 months later, their dream of happiness would be torn apart by a barbaric crime. On the morning of October 15, 2008, concern grew among Jan and Kiana's colleagues when both failed to show up for work without explanation. Jan, with his strict military discipline, rarely missed a shift without notice. Kiana, dedicated to her community healthcare work, was never late. Repeated unanswered calls fueled unease, and the eerie silence soon turned to fear. After multiple failed attempts to reach them, a mutual friend alerted the local police to check their Riverside home, where the newlyweds had recently settled. When officers arrived, the front door was slightly ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry. Inside, the stench of gasoline and gas filled the air, prompting cautious movements due to the risk of fire or explosion. The scene inside was chaotic. Furniture was overturned. Kiana's wallet lay near the door with papers and bank cards scattered. In the living room, a sight shocked even seasoned officers. 2 bodies, one male and one female, were found tightly bound, their mouths gagged. Jan, a battle-hardened sergeant, lay helpless in his own home. His body bore multiple wounds from being beaten with a blunt object, as if the perpetrator sought to humiliate the will of a Marine. Kiana, the woman who dreamed of becoming a doctor, had endured brutal and degrading acts before being shot dead. Evidence suggested she was sexually assaulted, a detail that fueled outrage as police pieced together the events. Not only was violence inflicted, but racial slurs were scrawled on the walls and mirrors, a malicious act that immediately raised suspicions of a hate crime. The house bore signs of an attempt to destroy evidence. Several areas showed traces of attempted arson, but the fire had only smoldered and extinguished itself, failing to consume the scene. This detail revealed the perpetrator's calculation. They not only sought to take Jan and Kiana's lives, but also to erase their tracks. Yet the failed plan left behind crucial evidence, giving investigators a chance to uncover the truth. The Riverside community was rocked by the news. The brutality was shocking. But the senselessness was even more so. Why would a newlywed couple with no known enemies become targets of such a horrific crime? Many locals believed it was a racially motivated act. Given Jan's white European background and Kiana's black heritage, the racial slurs scrawled at the scene only reinforced this theory. For the police, initial clues pointed to more than just motive. They also suggested an unusual level of professionalism. Footprints at the scene included 3 distinct types, including Nike Air Force One and Nike Cortez, indicating multiple perpetrators who had planned ahead. The scene was staged to mislead. The hateful graffiti might reflect genuine prejudice, or it could be a ruse to conceal a deeper motive. The question loomed, was this a hate crime driven by racial animus, or a calculated act with a more sinister purpose? In the early stages, the police faced a complex puzzle. The racial elements at the scene sparked public outrage, demanding justice for a perceived social wrong. Yet physical evidence suggested the involvement of individuals with specific knowledge of restraint, binding, and evidence destruction skills uncommon among typical street criminals. This marked the start of an intricate investigation, where each clue offered hope but also raised new questions. The case shook the community not just for its loss, but for the chilling message it left behind. A love that symbolized harmony was obliterated by barbaric acts. From here, the story transcended a double murder, becoming a warning about the interplay of violence, greed, and possibly racial prejudice truths that would gradually unfold in the investigation. After sealing off the crime scene, Riverside's Special Investigations Unit began collecting evidence. Footprints, burn marks, and racist graffiti were all valuable clues. But a seemingly minor piece of evidence proved pivotal: Kiana's ATM card. Hours after the murders, someone used her card to withdraw money. Security footage from the ATM captured a young man wearing a blue bandana and distinctive gloves, his demeanor cautious but recognizable by his attire. Surprisingly, the withdrawal occurred just outside the rear gate of Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base, a coincidence too significant to ignore. This led the Naval Criminal Investigative Service (NCIS) to join the case. With their expertise, investigators noticed something odd. Jan's military duffel bag remained untouched in the house. For any Marine, especially one who served in Iraq, such a bag was practically sacred. Its presence suggested the perpetrators might have military backgrounds. Understanding its significance, police began scrutinizing Jan's military connections. Colleagues described him as a strict, disciplined sergeant who often reprimanded younger Marines for rule-breaking. Among them, Tyrone Miller, a 20-year-old corporal, stood out. Miller had repeatedly expressed frustration, believing Jan hindered his promotion prospects. Peers called him hot-headed, prone to complaints, and known to associate with a group involved in petty thefts outside training hours. A key event heightened suspicion around Miller just before Jan and Kiana's funeral. He was injured in what was reported as a drive-by shooting. But further investigation revealed this incident was tied to Miller's group's criminal activities, not a random attack. These details painted an increasingly incriminating picture. During questioning, Miller initially denied involvement, confidently dismissing suspicions as stemming from his rocky relationship with Sergeant P. But when police presented phone records placing him near the victim's home on the night of the murder, his composure faltered. Under pressure, Miller admitted to driving by Jan's house with friends that night and revealed a critical detail: he was wearing a blue bandana and Nike Air Force One shoes, matching the ATM footage and crime scene footprints exactly. A search of Miller's residence left no room for doubt. Police found Kiana's ATM card, stolen jewelry and items from the victim's home, shell casings matching the crime scene, and the murder weapon itself. They also recovered the blue bandana, gloves identical to those in the ATM video, and even Jan's dress blue uniform, a profound insult to the deceased. Additional evidence linked Miller's group to other thefts, proving this was not their first crime. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Miller named 3 accomplices: Emrys John, 18, Kevin Cox, 20, and Keyshawn Sykes, 21, all Marines under Jan's command. Their combined testimonies and physical evidence allowed police to reconstruct the crime. On the morning of October 15th, the 4 drove to Riverside, unable to sneak in. Cox knocked on the door, exploiting his familiarity to catch Jan off guard. As the door opened, the group stormed in, overpowering the couple. For hours, they tortured Jan and Kiana to extract the ATM card's PIN. Miller and Sykes raped Kiana in front of her husband. Under Miller's orders, Emrys John shot both victims dead to mislead investigators. They spray-painted racial slurs and attempted to burn the house. But the fire failed to spread. For the police, solving the case was like following a cold, logical chain from ATM footage to footprints, phone records, physical evidence, and confessions. But behind this logic lay a painful truth. Soldiers trained to fight and protect had betrayed trust, using their military skills as tools for murder. The investigation identified the culprits, but raised a haunting question: what drove these men, once part of a disciplined force, to such ruthless depravity? In the military, discipline is the foundation, and camaraderie is the bond that holds people together in the toughest moments. The U.S. Marine Corps is renowned for its ironclad sense of brotherhood, where each individual represents not just themselves, but their unit and the entire force. Yet, in this case, those in uniform betrayed that trust. The 4 who turned Jan and Kiana's home into an execution ground were Marines under Jan's command. This reality outraged the public. How could those trained to protect use their skills to kill their comrade and his wife? Leading the group was Tyrone Miller, only 20 years old. On the surface, Miller was a promising young Marine, fit, trained, and battle-ready. But beneath this facade, he harbored deep conflicts, to his peers. He was temperamental, often complaining and resentful, particularly toward Sergeant Yan, his commanding officer tasked with shaping him. Yan was known for his strict adherence to discipline for motivated Marines. This rigor was a catalyst for growth, but for Miller, it felt like a shackle, even fueling hatred. He believed Yan deliberately blocked his advancement, though no evidence supported this. His accumulated resentment turned Yan, a dedicated leader, into a symbol of obstruction in Miller's mind. The other three, Emrys John, Kevin Cox, and Keyshawn Sykes, were not masterminds, but far from innocent. John, just 18, was impressionable, easily swayed by promises and the allure of group status. Cox, 20, was the least aggressive, but enabled the tragedy by knocking on the door. Sykes, 21, had a history of deviant behavior and quickly joined Miller's plan. All four shared a common thread: they were accustomed to breaking the law, from petty thefts to more dangerous acts. The Riverside crime was not a sudden act, but the culmination of gradual moral decay from disregarding discipline and the law to, ultimately, disregarding human life. Psychologically, their actions reflected a mix of greed and a need for power. Robbing Yan and Kiana was the immediate motive, but their prolonged torture and humiliation of the victims went beyond material gain. Miller and Sykes' rape of Kiana in front of Yan and the extended violence to extract the pin revealed a clear intent: absolute control, a way to satisfy Miller's wounded ego. In his mind, humiliating his commander and violating his wife was not just a crime, but a personal vendetta disguised as a robbery. Notably, the group staged the scene with racist graffiti. This was not merely a cover-up, but a deliberate statement. They wanted the crime to appear as a hate-driven act, misdirecting investigators and the public. Yet the graffiti also reflected their disdain for Yan and Kiana's interracial relationship, while the official motive was robbery and personal revenge. The racial element lingered as an undercurrent, hinting at the complex psychology of the perpetrators. The betrayal was especially bitter in the military context. Yan had led, trained, and possibly trusted these subordinates. In the military, brothers in arms is a sacred concept, but for Miller and his group, it meant nothing. They saw discipline as chains, trust as an opportunity for betrayal, and ultimately turned their training into a tool for savagery. From a sociological perspective, the case exposed a broader issue. Not everyone in uniform embodies military values. When individuals carry resentment, greed, or psychological deviance into a disciplined environment, they may not be reformed, but instead learn to exploit their skills for crime. This raises questions about screening, oversight, and psychological support in the armed forces. Miller and his group did not just kill 2 people. They tarnished the honor of an entire institution, turning their oath to protect into a public betrayal. For the victims, the betrayal cut deeper. Yan, a devoted sergeant, was killed by those he commanded. Kiana, a wife with big dreams, fell victim to a perverse act of vengeance not from society at large, but from the military community Yan trusted. This was more than a murder case. It was a symbol of the collapse of values once thought unshakable: honor, loyalty, and camaraderie. Once the truth was uncovered, the case swiftly moved to trial, becoming one of California's most shocking cases at the time. In 2013, the 3 main perpetrators, Tyrone Miller, Emrys John, and Kevin Cox, faced court. While Keyshawn Sykes was tried separately in 2014, all faced first-degree murder charges, along with additional counts of armed robbery, rape, and attempting to conceal the crime by arson. In the courtroom, the jury and public relived the gruesome details. Prosecutors outlined how the Marines planned, broke in, tortured, raped, and killed Jan and Kiana. Physical evidence from footprints, the ATM card, the murder weapon. To Jan's stolen dress, blue uniform painted an undeniable picture. The defendants, once young men in uniform, now bowed their heads before justice, stripped of their former military pride. When the verdicts came, their fates were sealed. Miller, the ringleader, received the death penalty. Emrys John, who pulled the trigger, was also sentenced to death. Keyshawn Sykes, complicit in the rape and violence, faced the same fate. Kevin Cox, deemed less culpable, received life imprisonment without parole. Many saw the sentences as just, reflecting the crime's brutality. However, since 2019, a moratorium on executions by Governor Gavin Newsom has kept the 3 death row inmates at San Quentin. Their fates uncertain. Cox remains at Chuckawalla Valley State Prison. For Jan and Kiana's family and friends, the trial's end brought no relief from their grief. Parents, colleagues, and close friends expressed anger and disillusionment. Jan had trusted his comrades, only to be betrayed by them. Many in the community emphasized the racial element, believing Jan and Kiana were targeted not just for money, but for their interracial relationship, making them a target for those harboring hatred. Police officially concluded the motive was robbery and personal revenge. But the question of racial bias lingered in public discourse. A haunting shadow. On October 24, 2008, a solemn military funeral was held at Riverside National Cemetery. 2 caskets, draped in American flags, stood side by side. A 21-gun salute echoed, honoring not just a Marine sergeant and his wife, but a brief, passionate love. The family chose to let Jan and Kiana rest together forever, honoring the vow they made at their wedding. Over a decade later, the case's impact endures. It is not just a personal tragedy, but a societal warning about the corruption that can fester even within institutions meant to uphold justice. The story raises uneasy questions. How can individuals like Miller be prevented from turning disciplined environments into breeding grounds for crime? Was racial prejudice merely a cover, or part of a darker truth? And most crucially, how can justice go beyond verdicts to ensure that values like honor, loyalty, and love embodied by Jan and Kiana are never betrayed again?